Downloadable content has the potential to be great and to be downright terrible. On one side of the conversation we have microtransactions and some truly vapid stuff. On the other we have expansions so good they turned opinion around on games that have otherwise soured in the public eye. Today we look at the latter because I'm Si for WhatCulture.com and here are our 9 DLCs that single-handedly saved video games. Number 9. Legion, World of Warcraft. When it comes to the impact each expansion pack had on World of Warcraft, the name Cataclysm is actually pretty self-explanatory. The controversial changes added in this DLC didn't resonate well with the community, causing a major decline in the game's popularity. Following this, World of Warcraft's fanbase kept shrinking, and even though expansion packs like Warlords of Draenor were able to rope some of them back in momentarily, the trend continued for more than half a decade. People just weren't that interested in playing retail WoW anymore, that is, until Legion came to save the day. Legion is considered World of Warcraft's last good expansion pack. This is mostly due to the fact that it listened to the community's feedback and fixed a lot of the issues people had been pointing out for years. It reimagined the talent tree and the leveling system, while also adding some creative dungeons and raids, as well as a new Demon Hunter class. Legion was the reason why so many people gave World of Warcraft a second chance. Too bad it all went down the drain once Battle for Azeroth was released. Number 8. The Taken King, Destiny. As of 2023, Destiny has broken several records related to download rates and active players. The game is undoubtedly a massive success, however it's only fair to attribute most of it to its third DLC, The Taken King. After all, if it wasn't for the complete overhaul of Destiny that happened alongside its release, the game wouldn't be able to compete with other big name titles in the MMO genre. When Destiny first launched its servers back in 2014, its average score sat around 7 out of 10. While most critics and reviewers were in agreement that the game had potential, they also agreed that it barely had any story content. Destiny also received some flack for its loot system, which incentivized a lot of grinding and forced people to look for rare items in the so-called loot caves, which spawned droves of boring copy-paste enemies. Bungie tried to address these issues with 3 expansions. The one that finally sealed the deal and turned the game into a huge hit was The Taken King. The DLC significantly expanded upon the game's story and added brilliantly crafted missions that were both rewarding and engaging. And it's just like they say, the third time's the charm. Number 7. Gods and Kings and Brave New World, Sid Meier's Civilization 5. Civilization 5 is easily one of the best games in the Civ series. Even nowadays, the 5th entry has plenty of fans who consider it to be better than its 2016 successor. However, this wouldn't have been the case if it wasn't for the 2 DLCs, Gods and Kings and Brave New World. Although vanilla Civ 5 is by no means a bad game, initially it lacked a lot of key features that made it so addictive. The game had no religion mechanics, a very limited tech tree, and even some of the most basic features like boats being able to capture coastal cities were not present in the base game. These 2 DLCs released for Civilization 5 improved it beyond all recognition, so much so that most people can't even imagine playing the game without them. This is why it's fair to say that while Civilization 5 wasn't necessarily doomed to fail, its DLCs saved it from becoming a generic and unmemorable experience, unlike many copycat titles that try fruitlessly to recreate Civ's formula and then fade into obscurity. Number 6. A House Divided and Heart of Darkness, Victoria 2. The case of Victoria 2 is actually pretty similar to that of Civilization 5, except it's far more extreme. The base game is so barren and devoid of even the most rudimentary features that it's pretty much unplayable without its 2 main DLCs. Before the first DLC, A House Divided was introduced, only a handful of Victoria's advertised 200 nations were actually playable, as the rest didn't have enough mechanics to even start their territorial expansion. Thanks to the DLC's new key features like being able to justify claims on neighbouring provinces, the smaller nations of the world were finally able to join the party with the big boys. Then the second DLC, Heart of Darkness, gave the game even more depth by creating a detailed colonization system and fleshing out things like naval combat and the African nations mechanics. The amount of content both DLCs added to Victoria 2 is truly staggering, especially when you consider how empty the base game is. It honestly makes you wonder why most of these mechanics weren't included in the first place, but then again, better late than never. Number 5. 2020 updates, No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is a classic example of how generating massive hype around the game can often end up being more harmful than beneficial. Back in 2016, when No Man's Sky was just on the cusp of getting released, the hype caused most people to have ridiculously high expectations of it. When the game finally came out and was revealed to be a repetitive procedurally generated mess, most people dropped off the hype train in favour of the hate wagon and rode it straight into game death central. The disappointment killed No Man's Sky's popularity in an instant, but luckily the developers didn't give up on the project. They Fortnite began working on matching people's expectations, and in 2020 they released a series of free content updates that radically changed No Man's Sky. The update added new playable races, spaceships, and a base building mechanic, plus they made major changes to how the game generated its worlds, making them feel more alive and fun to explore. It only took 4 years, but No Man's Sky was finally what it was meant to be. These days the game has a dedicated fanbase and is generally recognised as a great title to sink some hours into with your friends. Number 4, OCTO expansion, Splatoon 2. Over the years, Splatoon has become one of the staple titles in Nintendo's collection. The game has a dedicated fandom and has sold millions of copies worldwide. However, this success probably wouldn't have come to pass if Splatoon 2 failed to separate itself from the original. And before the OCTO expansion was released, Splatoon 2 felt pretty similar to Splatoon 1. The game had no distinguishable features of its own, resulting in people spitefully calling it Splatoon 1.5. Some even considered its soundtrack and single-player campaign to be vastly inferior. In order to remedy this, in 2018, Nintendo released Splatoon's first proper expansion pack called the OCTO expansion. The DLC featured a brand new single-player campaign that completely reimagined the base game version by implementing new elements like puzzle chambers, point-based challenges, and a more in-depth storyline. The player was allowed to play as the new race of Octolings, and after beating the campaign, they could even use the Octolings in their multiplayer matches. By itself, Splatoon 2 was bound to end up in the forgettable realm of mediocrity, but thanks to the OCTO expansion, the franchise is bigger than it's ever been. Number 3, Heists Update, Grand Theft Auto Online. GTA Online has been around for nearly a decade at this point. Existing on 7 different platforms across 3 generations of consoles, it's right on par with Skyrim when it comes to its prolonged existence. And to think that the online mode used to be the most criticised part of Grand Theft Auto 5. Back when GTA Online was first released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, the multiplayer was basically a barren wasteland. There weren't that many missions to choose from, and the few things that were available were about as entertaining as waiting half an hour in a lobby, patiently letting the game find enough players to do the aforementioned missions with. It all changed when Rockstar finally announced the first Heists update in 2015. This new exclusive content added player activities that were both rewarding and entertaining. Instead of following the same gimmicky objectives in repetitive missions, players were now able to band together and organise heists just like in the single-player campaign. This more open-ended and story-focused approach ushered in a new golden age of GTA Online, along with 3 other major heist updates. The game's community is still alive and well, mostly due to these. Number 2, Battle Royale, Fortnite. These days, it's hard to imagine Fortnite as anything other than a Battle Royale game. It's mastered the formula and has jammed itself into our collective consciousness as a quintessential title of the genre. This is exactly why most people forget that Fortnite's Battle Royale was originally just an alternative game mode that came with a free update. The base version of Fortnite is actually the still active, though rarely updated, Save the World mode. It's your typical 4-player co-op campaign where the players build bases, aka the fort part of Fortnite, and try to defend them against hordes of zombies. The campaign failed to catch people's interest back in 2017, which is why Epic decided to look at what their much more successful competition was doing and try to recreate it in their own game. In only 2 months, they developed a new free-to-download Battle Royale mode inspired by the popularity of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. And of course, the Battle Royale completely outshined the original vision of Fortnite. It became an international success that no other title in recent video game history could even hope to compete with. See kids, it turns out that copying your friend's homework can work out sometimes. And number 1, the Citadel, Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 might be one of the greatest titles in the history of gaming, but it might also have one of the worst endings in the history of gaming. Nothing disappointed fans more than having to conclude Shepard's epic tale with a choice between 3 coloured buttons that played slightly different cutscenes and refused to give your favourite characters a proper satisfying send-off. Luckily, BioWare recognised the error of their ways, and in 2013 they released a DLC that finally provided the fans with the closure they so desperately desired. The Citadel took Shepard and crew aboard the political and cultural capital of the Federation, where they enjoyed some quality time off and tried to uncover a huge conspiracy against the Commander. The entire DLC was so good that it more than made up for the flop of an end in the base game. The Citadel was filled with wonderful moments between the main cast, plenty of lore bombs for die-hard fans, and served as a fitting farewell for the characters. The Citadel is like a love letter to Mass Effect, and it's probably why so many people still care about the series to this day. Which video game DLCs have you played that completely changed your opinion on the game for the better? Let us know down in the comments below, and like this video, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. There's a video on screen right now. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's great, so you should click it. Make sure you head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Si for WhatCulture, and have a good week.